There's a particular kind of dread that comes not from something fast or loud, but from something patient. The most unsettling predators in the insect world don't always announce themselves with jaws or venom or speed. Some of them are already inside by the time the host notices anything at all, if it ever does. Across the damp undersides of leaves, inside the dark chambers of wasp nests, along the trembling silk of spider webs, and out in the open warmth of meadows, a different kind of predation has been quietly perfecting itself for millions of years. It doesn't take the body all at once, it takes the behavior first. The walk changes, the feeding stops, or intensifies. An insect that would normally flee toward shadow instead climbs toward light. One that would fight instead goes still. The creature is alive, technically, breathing, moving, sometimes even appearing to function normally. But somewhere in the tissue, in the chemistry, in the delicate architecture of the nervous system, something else has taken the wheel. This is parasitism in one of its strangest and most fascinating forms, not simply feeding off a host, but rewriting it. The host becomes a resource, yes, but also a vehicle, a shelter, a delivery mechanism. The parasite's survival depends not just on getting inside, but on making the host behave in whatever way gives the parasite the best possible outcome, even if that outcome is the host's death, in a specific place, at a specific time, in a specific posture. The precision of it is what stops you cold when you really look at it. Nature doesn't usually do precise. Nature does relentless. But here, in these relationships, you find something that looks almost like planning. What follows is an exploration of that world, the insects that are controlled and the organisms that control them. Not as a catalogue of horrors, though some of what's here is genuinely disturbing, but as a serious look at one of evolution's most elaborate solutions to the problem of survival. Because in the end, that's all this is. Survival, pushed so far in a particular direction that it starts to look like something stranger than biology. It starts to look like strategy. Picture a leafcutter trail on a warm afternoon after rain. One of those rivers of movement that cuts through the undergrowth so consistently it looks almost intentional, like a road someone decided to build. Workers move in both directions, each one carrying a fragment of leaf cut from the canopy above, holding it upright like a small green flag. They're not eating those leaves. They're farming with them, delivering material to the colony's underground fungus gardens, which the colony then cultivates and feeds from. The whole operation runs on chemical signals and inherited roles, each ant slotted into a task it will perform for its entire short life. It's a system that has, by any reasonable measure, worked extraordinarily well. Leafcutter colonies can strip entire trees. They reshape the forest around them, and they are, for the most part, impressively difficult to disrupt, which makes what happens next all the more interesting. Somewhere along that trail, a microscopic spore lands on a worker's outer shell. It doesn't sting, doesn't bite, doesn't trigger any immediate alarm. The spore belongs to a fungus in the Ophiocordyceps family, and its strategy involves no rushing at all. It breaches the ant's protective cuticle using a combination of enzymes and physical pressure, then begins to spread through the interior of the body as a network of living threads, drawing nutrients from the host's tissues while keeping it alive and mobile. This is the part that tends to unsettle people when they first encounter it. The ant keeps walking. It keeps carrying leaves. It continues to look from the outside like an ordinary worker. The infection doesn't announce itself. It expands quietly through muscle and tissue while the ant goes on doing exactly what it was built to do. For a long time, scientists assumed the fungus must be doing something dramatic to the ant's brain, some kind of direct neural hijacking. The reality appears to be stranger, and in its own way, more impressive. Research suggests the fungus doesn't so much invade the brain as work around it, manipulating muscle function and chemical signaling throughout the body in a way that gradually overrides what the ant's own nervous system is telling it to do. The ant's instincts don't vanish. They get redirected, like a river that's been quietly dammed upstream. The organism doing the steering isn't sitting anywhere in particular. It's distributed through the entire body, rewriting behavior from the inside out. At a certain point in the infection, the ant leaves the trail. For a social insect, this is not a small thing. The trail is everything: orientation, protection, purpose, belonging. Leaving it means losing the chemical cues that tell the ant where it is and what it should be doing. But the fungus has its own requirements, and they don't align with colony life. The infected ant climbs up into the vegetation above the forest floor, ascending until it reaches a zone where humidity and temperature fall within a narrow range suitable for fungal growth and spore dispersal. The height matters. The orientation of the leaf matters. Studies have found infected ants consistently dying in remarkably similar positions, on the undersides of leaves, at consistent heights above the ground, in areas that happen to sit directly above the colony's foraging routes. The fungus has effectively used the ant's own locomotion to solve a dispersal problem. Then the ant bites down, hard, with a force that locks the jaw even after death, anchoring the body to the leaf's surface. What follows is, depending on your perspective, either grotesque or extraordinary, and possibly both. The fungus continues growing from the corpse, eventually sending up a slender stalk from the ant's head. From this structure, spores are released to drift downward toward the forest floor, where the next generation of workers will pass beneath. The ant that was once part of a living colony has become, in the end, a delivery mechanism for the thing that killed it. The colony will lose workers to this cycle again and again, and it has almost certainly been doing so for millions of years. Some colonies appear to have developed grooming behaviors that reduce the rate of infection, but the fungus, in turn, has had just as long to refine its methods. What strikes you about this, if you sit with it long enough, is how thoroughly it inverts what we usually mean by predation. There's no struggle here, no chase, no moment of visible violence. Just a sequence of biochemical instructions passed through a living body, steering it, with something close to precision, toward a death that serves the predator's needs almost perfectly. The ant was shaped by evolution to be tireless, to follow instructions, to serve. The fungus, it turns out, was shaped to take advantage of exactly that. A healthy honeybee colony is one of the more remarkable things nature has managed to put together. Thousands of individuals operating as something close to a single organism. Nurses tending larvae in the dark interior of the comb, guards checking returning foragers by scent at the entrance, workers passing nectar from mouth to mouth in a chain that will eventually produce honey. The temperature inside is regulated collectively. Roles shift with age and need. Every bee is embedded in a web of chemical signals and inherited behaviors so tightly coordinated that the colony can respond to threats, reallocate labor, and adjust to seasonal changes with a speed and efficiency that no individual bee could achieve alone. It is, in every sense, a system built on belonging, which is exactly why what a small fly does to it is so unsettling. Apocephalus borealis is a phorid fly, and next to a honeybee, it looks almost comically unimposing. But it has developed a parasitic strategy tailored, with uncomfortable specificity, to exploit the bee's biology. The female fly approaches a worker and deposits eggs directly into the bee's abdomen. The bee doesn't die immediately. She continues to look like herself. Same stripes, same wings, same outward readiness for work. But inside, the developing larvae have already begun feeding on her tissues. They're not trying to kill her quickly. They need time, warmth, and protection, and a living mobile bee provides all three. The host carries them forward through the world while they grow, an arrangement that benefits exactly one party. As the infection progresses, something in the bee's behavior begins to shift. Workers infected with A. borealis have been observed leaving the hive at night, a detail that sounds minor until you consider what night actually means for a honeybee. These are insects whose visual systems are built around daylight, reading the sun's position, detecting polarized light, recognizing landmarks in color and ultraviolet. After dark, that navigational toolkit becomes largely useless. The air outside cools rapidly, and a single bee away from the colony loses the thermal buffer that thousands of clustered bodies provide. Ordinary workers stay inside at night for good reason. An infected bee that leaves isn't adapting to circumstances. She's losing her grip on the behavioral rhythms that normally keep her alive. Once outside, These bees have been found circling artificial lights, stumbling, moving in patterns that look less like foraging and more like disorientation. Whether the fly larvae are directly manipulating the bee's nervous system, or whether the damage from the infection is simply degrading her ability to function normally, the outcome serves the parasite either way. Away from the hive, the developing larvae face a critical threat. Honeybees have what's called a social immune system, a set of collective behaviors, grooming, hygienic removal, detection of abnormality, that the colony uses to police itself. A parasitized bee that remains inside the hive risks being identified and removed before the larvae can complete their development. A bee that wanders out into the dark, confused and increasingly unable to function, removes that threat entirely. The larvae eventually emerge from the bee's body through the neck and head region, and at that point, her role in the story is finished. What lingers, though, is the particular logic of how the parasite achieved this. It didn't attack the colony. It didn't breach the hive or overwhelm the guards. It simply reached inside the colony's social structure and pulled one worker out of it, turned the bee's own body into something that needed to leave at the worst possible time, in the worst possible conditions. For a creature whose survival is so fundamentally dependent on staying connected to the group, isolation isn't just inconvenient. It's a death sentence the bee herself delivers, one stumbling step at a time into the dark. By late summer, a social wasp colony has been running at full capacity for months. The paper nest, built from chewed wood fibers, layered and shaped over weeks, hums with the kind of compressed activity that makes it look, from a distance, almost nervous. Workers arrive and depart in quick pulses, carrying prey, construction material, liquid food. Inside, larvae in their individual cells signal hunger through chemical cues, and those signals help regulate the rhythm of adult foraging. Every wasp in the colony is slotted into a seasonal plan with a fixed timeline. Build, grow, reproduce, decline, and do all of it before the cold arrives. These are not relaxed insects. They are insects on a schedule, and that schedule, as it turns out, is exactly what a certain parasite has learned to exploit. Strepsipterans are one of those groups of organisms that take a moment to fully process. They're parasitic insects themselves, and the species Xenos vesperum specializes in social wasps with a life strategy that is, by any standard, deeply strange. The parasite enters the wasp during its larval development and spends most of its life inside the host's body, feeding and growing in the space between the wasp's abdominal plates. In an infected wasp, you might notice a small, pale protrusion where the smooth armor should be uninterrupted. A faint wrongness that most predators would never register and most people would walk right past. The wasp itself appears functional. It flies, feeds, grooms, and moves through the landscape with apparent purpose. The infection doesn't look like an infection. It looks like nothing at all, which is rather the point. What the parasite is doing, though, is not nothing. Xenos vesperum interferes with the wasp's reproductive development, effectively dismantling its role in the colony's biological economy. Infected females don't develop normally as workers or future reproductives. Their investment in nest duties weakens, and crucially, their behavior begins to drift away from the colony at times when uninfected wasps would still be deeply embedded in its operations. This matters enormously in a social insect, because a wasp's relationship to the nest isn't just habitual, it's hormonal, chemical, and tightly timed. The colony functions because individuals respond to its needs at the right moments. Pull an individual out of that timing, and you've done something more significant than simply injuring it. You've detached it from the only context in which its existence made sense. Infected wasps tend to spend time on flowers, foraging for nectar in open, sunlit spaces, rather than hunting prey or returning to the nest. On the surface, this looks like feeding. But flowers are also congregation points, visited by enormous numbers of insects from a wide area, and for the parasite, that's the relevant detail. Male strepsipterans are free-living, short-lived, and built almost entirely around the task of finding females, which remain embedded inside their hosts. An infected wasp moving through a landscape of flowering plants lingering in exposed, accessible places, becomes a mobile opportunity for the parasite's reproduction. The host's wings carry the parasite's genes into exactly the right environment, not through any coercion the wasp could recognize, but through a gradual reorientation of what the wasp finds itself drawn to do. As autumn approaches and temperatures begin to drop, the story takes one more turn. Some infected wasps move toward overwintering sites, sheltered spots where they can survive the cold, at times or in ways that diverge from their uninfected counterparts. The parasite, it seems, has co-opted not just the wasp's foraging behavior, but its seasonal instincts around shelter and survival. The host's finely tuned response to environmental change, the same instinct that would normally carry the wasp through to the following spring, gets redirected toward keeping the parasite alive instead. There's no single dramatic moment in this story, no visible seizure or sudden transformation. The wasp still looks like a wasp. Its yellow and black markings still warn predators to keep their distance. Its legs still grip flower petals and bark with the casual confidence of an insect that has survived by being well-armed and fast. But the life those wings are carrying forward is no longer entirely its own. The parasite doesn't need spectacle. It just needs the wasp to go to the right places, at the right times, in the right season. And it has spent a very long time learning how to arrange exactly that. Few insects carry the kind of reputation a ladybug does. That vivid red shell with its neat black spots is one of the most recognizable warning signals in the insect world, a visual shorthand that many predators learn early and remember well. The coloration advertises real chemical defenses, alkaloids stored in the beetle's blood that taste genuinely unpleasant and can deter everything from birds to larger invertebrates. It's an honest signal, which in nature is relatively rare, and it's earned the ladybug a kind of immunity that most soft-bodied insects would envy. Combine that with a steady appetite for aphids and scale insects, and you have a predator that moves through the garden with a certain untouchable quality, armored, defended, and largely left alone, all of which makes it a particularly strange choice of victim. And yet, Dinocampus coccinelle is a parasitoid wasp, and it has built its entire reproductive strategy around the ladybug's defenses, not by avoiding them, but by eventually borrowing them. The process begins straightforwardly enough. A female wasp finds a ladybug and injects a single egg into the beetle's body. The ladybug doesn't die. It continues to walk and feed, going about its business on stems and leaves, showing no obvious sign of what's developing inside it. The wasp larva that hatches feeds on the host's internal tissues, but does so carefully, avoiding organs that would kill the beetle outright. Keeping the host alive is not incidental to the strategy. It is the strategy, and everything that follows depends on it. When the larva is fully developed, it chews its way out through the beetle's abdomen and spins a cocoon, typically directly beneath the ladybug's body or pressed close against it. This is the moment of maximum vulnerability for the wasp. A cocoon is, by definition, defenseless. A silk package sitting exposed on a leaf surface, completely unable to respond to the ants, spiders, and predatory insects that patrol the same environment. Under normal circumstances, a cocoon left in the open would have poor odds. But the circumstances here are not normal, because the ladybug is still alive, and it stays. What happens next has been documented and studied, and it remains one of the more arresting examples of parasitic manipulation in the insect world. The ladybug positions itself over the cocoon and remains there, twitching its legs and body in small, irregular movements whenever something approaches. It doesn't flee. It doesn't resume foraging. It guards. The beetle that was once a hunter has become a deterrent. And the thing it's deterring predators from is the cocoon of the organism that just emerged from its own body. The wasp, in effect, has exited the host and yet maintained control over it, converting the ladybug from a living incubator into a living shield, with a reputation attached. That reputation is the key. A predator approaching an unfamiliar cocoon on a leaf has no particular reason to be cautious, but a predator approaching that same cocoon with a spotted, chemically defended beetle twitching directly above it has reason to reconsider. The ladybug's warning signal, which it built over its own lifetime, and which evolution refined over far longer, now functions as advertising for the wasp's offspring. The cocoon itself is fragile. The beetle above it is not. Researchers found that cocoons guarded by their ladybug hosts survive at significantly higher rates than unguarded ones. The manipulation is not incidental to the wasp's success. It's a measurable component of it. The ladybug's fate after all this is variable. Some beetles don't survive the emergence. Others do, and a proportion eventually recover something close to normal behavior once the wasp has completed its development, though they're rarely in good condition and their chances going forward are slim. That possibility of survival, however partial, adds a layer of complexity to what might otherwise seem like a straightforward story of exploitation. The wasp doesn't need the beetle to die on any particular schedule. It needs the beetle to remain present, functional enough to twitch and display, for just long enough. After that, the ladybug story is its own again, if there's enough of it left to continue. What makes this chapter of parasitic biology so difficult to shake is how completely it inverts the beetle's role in the ecosystem. A predator built to regulate other insect populations, armored and chemically defended and largely feared, ends up spending the most consequential hours of its adult life as a watchtower for the larva that hollowed it out. The leaf becomes a strange little theater of misplaced loyalty, and the wasp, long gone inside its cocoon, has arranged the whole thing without being present for any of it. There's nothing quiet about a cicada emergence. After years underground, in some species more than a decade, feeding on root fluids in darkness and near stillness, the nymphs climb out of the soil and into open air in numbers that can be difficult to comprehend. They shed their old skins, dry their wings, and within days the canopy is saturated with sound. The males produce it using a pair of specialized vibrating membranes called tymbals, clicking them in rapid pulses that resonate through the body's air chambers and carry for remarkable distances through the trees. Females respond with wing flicks and movement, and the whole system, acoustic, behavioral, densely social, locks into a rhythm oriented entirely around reproduction. The adult life of a cicada is short and completely focused. Everything that individuals spent years becoming underground is cashed in during these few weeks above ground, which makes Massospora an almost perversely well-timed adversary. Massospora is a fungal parasite, and unlike many of the organisms in this series, it doesn't work discreetly. In infected cicadas, the fungal tissue eventually replaces the rear portion of the abdomen, not invisibly, not subtly, but visibly, forming a pale, chalky mass packed with spores where the back of the insect's body used to be. The cicada is, in the most literal sense, coming apart. And yet it keeps moving. It flies. It calls. It attempts to mate. The behavioral program continues running, even as the body executing it is being consumed and replaced from behind. If you find this difficult to square, an insect that is visibly, catastrophically damaged, continuing to behave as though nothing has changed, that dissonance is precisely what makes this case so striking. The fungus hasn't just infected the host. It has, somehow, kept the host in motion past the point where motion should be possible. The reason this matters so much comes down to how cicadas spread Massospora in the first place, through contact. And cicadas, during emergence season, are creatures defined by contact. They congregate in enormous numbers. Males call to attract attention. Courtship brings bodies close together repeatedly. In this crowded acoustic environment, an infected individual becomes a moving dispersal event, and the fungus appears to push that process further. Some infected males display behavioral shifts that resemble female receptivity, drawing other males toward them. A male that would normally be competing is instead functioning as a lure, pulling healthy cicadas into proximity with a body that is shedding spores. The mating system that normally organizes reproduction in the species gets quietly turned into something else entirely. What makes Massospora particularly difficult to dismiss as simply a fast-acting pathogen is the energy question. Infected cicadas don't collapse. Some research has identified psychoactive compounds, including substances related to those found in certain psychedelic fungi, present in Massospora infections, raising the possibility that the fungus is actively influencing the host's neurochemistry in ways that sustain or even amplify its activity levels. Whether this is a deliberate chemical manipulation or a byproduct of the fungal chemistry isn't fully resolved, but the effect is consistent. Cicadas that should, by any physical logic, be shutting down instead keep flying, crawling, and attempting to mate. Every flight scatters spores. Every physical encounter with another cicada is a transmission opportunity. The forest's mating chorus, which exists to bring the species together for reproduction, becomes the primary mechanism by which the fungus moves through the population. There's a particular quality to this form of parasitic control that sets it apart from the others. It doesn't hide. It doesn't require behavioral subtlety or careful timing or a specific microhabitat. It works in full daylight, in the loudest, most crowded environment the insect world produces, using the host's own urgency as fuel. The cicada spent years preparing for a brief window of reproductive opportunity. Massospora has evolved to intercept that window and redirect the energy driving it, turning the most powerful behavioral force in the host's life into the engine of the parasite's dispersal. The cicada calls, moves, and reaches for other cicadas with everything it has left. It just isn't doing it for itself anymore. Watch a praying mantis long enough and you start to understand why ambush predation works so well. The body is built for it, flattened, angular, colored to disappear against bark or dried grass or a tangle of green stems. The head swivels with an almost mechanical precision, tracking movement while the rest of the body stays completely still. Those folded forelegs, held in that characteristic raised posture, are spring-loaded weapons that close faster than most prey can process the threat. A mantis doesn't chase. It waits, and then it doesn't miss. It's a predator so well adapted to its environment that the environment itself, the vegetation, the geometry of stems and shadows, is part of the hunting strategy, which makes the mantis's relationship with water worth examining closely, because water is everything a mantis is not built for. It's open, reflective, impossible to hide in, and genuinely dangerous for an insect that grips with its legs and strikes through air. A mantis near the edge of a pond is a mantis in the wrong place, unless it has a horsehair worm inside it. Horsehair worms, members of the phylum Nematomorpha, have a life cycle that requires two entirely different environments, and the gap between them is the problem the parasite has had to solve. The juvenile stages develop inside terrestrial arthropods, beetles, crickets, grasshoppers, mantises. The host provides the nutrients and protection the worm needs to grow, and during this phase the host continues to function. A parasitized mantis still hunts, still moves through vegetation, still behaves like a predator going about its life. The worm growing in its body cavity is feeding on surrounding tissues and fluids, but slowly, carefully enough that the host remains mobile. For months, sometimes, this arrangement holds. The mantis carries the parasite through the landscape without any visible sign that something is redirecting its future. The worm's juvenile stage eventually ends, and when it does, everything changes. Adult horsehair worms must reach water to mate and lay eggs. Standing water, moving water, even a shallow puddle, and they cannot get there on their own. They have no legs, no ability to navigate a terrestrial environment. What they have instead is a host that can walk, and the apparent ability to influence where that host walks. Research into horsehair worm behavior suggests the parasite can alter how the host responds to environmental cues, possibly manipulating sensitivity to light or moisture in ways that draw the infected insect toward water. The mechanisms are still being worked out, and the neuroscience is genuinely complex, but the behavioral outcome has been documented clearly enough. Terrestrial insects that should have no reason to approach water begin moving toward it. A mantis walking toward a pond is not following any logic that serves its own survival. The water offers it nothing. No prey, no shelter, no advantage of any kind. And yet the walk happens. The insect reaches the edge and sometimes enters. What follows is one of those moments in nature that takes a beat to fully absorb. From the mantis's body, a worm begins to emerge into the water. Long, sometimes dramatically longer than the host itself, coiled and compressed inside the body cavity for months, it unspools into the water, while the mantis is still alive, still present, still the same predator that spent weeks hunting through the vegetation. The worm that needed an aquatic environment to reproduce has arrived there by borrowing a set of legs that would never have gone near water without this particular arrangement. The mantis may survive the emergence in some cases, though it's rarely in good condition afterward. But that survival, or lack of it, is essentially beside the point of the story the worm is telling. The mantis's entire suite of survival adaptations, its camouflage, its visual acuity, its hunting instinct, its ability to navigate a complex terrestrial landscape, all of it served in the end as a delivery system. The pond that represents a hazard to the insect is the destination the parasite spent its entire juvenile life moving toward. Two animals sharing one body, heading in opposite directions. The worm wins that argument, and it does so without ever having to make a sound. There's a particular quality to a golden silk orb-weaver's web in morning light. The threads catch it differently than ordinary spider silk, with a warm, almost metallic yellow that makes the whole structure look less like something spun and more like something manufactured. The web itself can span impressive gaps between trees, and it isn't simply large, it's precise. The spider lays out radial lines first, then works inward in careful spirals, placing the sticky capture threads at consistent intervals calibrated to intercept insects of a certain size moving at a certain speed. Different zones of the web serve different functions. Some threads absorb impact without snapping. Others transmit vibration toward the spider with enough fidelity that it can distinguish a trapped moth from a piece of wind-blown debris without seeing it. The web is, in the most literal sense, an extension of the spider's nervous system, a structure it builds from its own body and then inhabits as a sensory organ. It takes time to construct, energy to maintain, and skill, if that word can apply to instinct, to build correctly. All of which makes what a parasitoid wasp does to it genuinely worth thinking about. Certain wasps in the family Ichneumonidae have evolved to use orb-weaving spiders as living incubators. A female wasp finds a spider on its web, immobilizes it briefly, and attaches an egg to the spider's abdomen. Then she leaves. The spider recovers and continues its life, repairing the web, responding to vibrations, feeding normally, while the larva that hatches from that egg clings to its back and begins feeding on its body, fluids through the cuticle. The larva doesn't kill the spider immediately, and the restraint is deliberate in the way that evolution makes things deliberate. A dead spider provides a finite meal. A living spider keeps building, keeps maintaining its web, keeps doing the one thing this parasite cannot do for itself. The spider's construction ability is the resource being managed here, not just its tissues. As the larva approaches the point where it needs to pupate, something shifts in the spider's behavior. It stops producing its normal foraging web, that intricate spiral architecture optimized for catching flying insects, and begins building something different. Researchers have documented this altered structure in several parasitized orb-weaver species, and the contrast with the normal web is clear. Fewer threads, simplified geometry, but dramatically reinforced anchor points and support lines. The resulting structure is sometimes called a cocoon web, and it has no value whatsoever as a hunting tool. What it does have is structural durability, the kind of web that can hold a suspended cocoon through wind and rain and the movement of surrounding vegetation without collapsing. The spider, in its final days, has stopped building for itself and started building for something else, without any apparent awareness that the project has changed. How the larva achieves this is still being investigated. Web construction in spiders isn't a single decision or a simple reflex. It's a long behavioral sequence, with each step guided by feedback from silk tension, body orientation, and the physical environment. The larva appears to interfere with that sequence through chemical or physiological signals, nudging the spider into an alternative version of its own building program. The parasite doesn't need to understand web architecture. The spider already does. The manipulation just needs to push the spider toward the wrong set of instructions at the right moment, and the spider's own competence takes care of the rest. When the cocoon web is finished, the larva kills the spider and builds its cocoon within the structure the spider constructed. It hangs there, suspended above the forest floor, sheltered from ground-level predators, held in open air by silk the spider produced from its own body. The spider is gone, but its work remains. And the work is doing exactly what a parasitoid cocoon needs it to do. This is what separates this case from simple predation. The parasite didn't just consume the spider. It conscripted the spider's most sophisticated capability, redirected months of evolved building behavior, and used the output as infrastructure. The golden web that once vibrated with information about prey now holds, motionless and purposeful, the next generation of the thing that ended the spider's life. The spider built it perfectly. It just wasn't building for itself. A wasp spider in a summer meadow is one of those creatures that rewards a second look. The markings, bold yellow and black bands across the abdomen, are striking enough that many people mistake it for something dangerous on first encounter, which is, of course, exactly the point. The coloration mimics the warning patterns of stinging insects well enough to give potential predators pause, buying the spider a margin of safety it couldn't earn through speed or venom alone. Its web, strung between grass stems with careful geometry, often features a distinctive zigzag band of thicker silk near the center, a structure called a stabilimentum, whose exact function has been debated for years, with proposed explanations ranging from prey attraction to camouflage disruption to structural reinforcement. Whatever its primary role, the web as a whole is a finely tuned instrument. Every thread under tension feeds vibration back to the spider at the center, and the spider reads that information continuously, distinguishing a struggling fly from a grass stem, brushing silk from a predator, probing the edge. The web is not just a trap, it's the spider's primary interface with its environment. Into this system, a parasitoid wasp introduces a single egg deposited onto the spider's abdomen during a brief, targeted encounter. The spider survives the encounter. The larva that hatches clings to the outside of the host's body and begins feeding through the cuticle, drawing on the spider's fluids, while the spider goes on doing what it does, repairing threads, responding to vibrations, catching and wrapping prey. For a while, nothing visible changes. The parasite feeds carefully, taking enough to grow without taking so much that the host shuts down, because a functioning spider is worth far more to the larva than a dead one. The silk-producing machinery, the complex motor routines that build and maintain a web, the sensory systems that keep the spider engaged with its environment, all of it continues operating, and all of it is what the parasite will eventually need. As the larva nears the end of its development, the spider's behavior begins to shift. The normal orb web, with its precisely spaced spiral threads designed to intercept and hold flying insects, gives way to something structurally different. The spider produces a simplified framework, fewer elements, heavier anchor lines, reinforced support structures, none of the delicate sticky spiraling that makes a hunting web work. This altered construction, documented in wasp spider hosts and several other parasitized orb-weavers, is sometimes called a cocoon web, and it serves no purpose for the spider's survival. It won't catch prey. It isn't optimized for the spider's own needs in any way that researchers have identified. What it does do is provide a durable, elevated, well-anchored platform, exactly what a pupating parasitoid needs to survive wind, rain, and the attentions of ground-level predators. The mechanism behind this behavioral shift is one of the more compelling open questions in parasitology. Spiders don't build a single type of web. They carry multiple construction programs within their behavioral repertoire, switching between them in response to internal states and environmental signals. A spider will build differently when molting, when producing an egg sac, when repairing damage under time pressure. The parasitoid appears to interfere with the signals that select between these programs, nudging the spider toward a construction pattern that happens to suit the larva's upcoming needs. It doesn't need to teach the spider anything new. The spider already knows how to build a reinforced support structure. The manipulation just has to press the right switch at the right time, and the spider's own biology handles the rest. After the altered web is complete, the larva kills the spider and pupates within the structure the spider built. The cocoon hangs there in the meadow grass, held above the ground by silk produced by an animal that is no longer alive, sheltered by a framework constructed by an animal that had no idea what it was building. Eventually, the adult wasp will emerge, and the web will decay around the empty cocoon case, and the grass will keep swaying in the same breeze it always did. The spider's final act of construction was, by any technical measure, well executed. The web held, the angles were right, the anchor points were strong. It just wasn't built for the spider's future, it was built for someone else's, and the spider never knew the difference. Dusk is when the shift happens. The heat of the day softens, air settles close to the ground, and a female mosquito begins navigating a sensory landscape that's almost entirely invisible to us. She doesn't see a person sitting outside the way we might notice a stranger across a room. She reads carbon dioxide, the slow, steady exhalation of a breathing body, as a plume drifting through the air, and she follows the gradient of it with a precision that improves the closer she gets. Body heat narrows the search further. Skin chemistry narrows it more. By the time she lands, she has been guided through multiple layers of biological information, each one more specific than the last, to a precise location on a precise body. The whole system is calibrated for one purpose: finding blood, which provides the protein she needs to produce eggs. It's not aggression and it's not indiscriminate. It's a finely tuned sensory process that happens to put her in close contact with vertebrate hosts hundreds of times over the course of her short life. And it is exactly this behavior, reliable, repeatable, essential, that Plasmodium has built its entire existence around. Plasmodium is the genus of parasites responsible for malaria, and its life cycle has a structural problem that the mosquito solves. The parasite must move between hosts from an infected vertebrate into a mosquito during feeding, through a complex developmental sequence inside the mosquito's body, and eventually into a new vertebrate when the mosquito bites again. It cannot do any of this under its own power. It has no locomotion, no sensory system, no way to find or reach a host independently. What it has instead is the mosquito, and what the mosquito has is one of the most effective host-finding systems in the insect world. The relationship is, from the parasite's perspective, a near-perfect arrangement. The question is whether Plasmodium simply benefits from the mosquito's existing behavior, or whether it actively shapes that behavior to improve its own odds. And the research increasingly suggests the answer is both, depending on where the parasite is in its development. This is a more understated form of manipulation than most of the cases in this series. The mosquito doesn't transform visibly. It doesn't abandon its normal behavior or move toward environments that would harm it. It still tracks carbon dioxide gradients, still responds to warmth and moisture, still lands with the same delicate coordination it always has. What appears to shift is the intensity and timing of that behavior. Studies have found evidence that Plasmodium infection can influence host-seeking drive and feeding persistence in ways that correlate with the parasite's developmental stage. When the parasite is still developing inside the mosquito and isn't yet transmissible, the mosquito may actually feed less aggressively, reducing the risk of being killed mid-bite before the parasite is ready. When transmissible forms have reached the salivary glands, the calculus shifts. Increased biting attempts, greater persistence in probing, a stronger drive to keep feeding even when disturbed, all improve the probability that the parasite makes it into a new host. The mosquito's hunger becomes a timing mechanism. The stakes embedded in each landing are easy to underestimate. Every time a mosquito bites, it risks being swatted, crushed, groomed off, or taken by a predator. And it needs to complete a precise, multi-step process to succeed. Approach undetected, pierce the skin at the right angle, locate a blood vessel, feed, and withdraw before any of those risks materialize. It's a dangerous operation, repeated constantly throughout her adult life. If Plasmodium can nudge the mosquito toward attempting it slightly more often or persisting slightly longer when the first probe doesn't find blood, the effect on transmission doesn't stay small. Multiply a marginal behavioral shift across millions of mosquitoes biting across an entire wet season, and you are looking at a meaningful change in how efficiently the parasite moves through a population. The manipulation doesn't need to be dramatic to matter enormously. It just needs to tilt the numbers. What makes the mosquitoes chapter in this story different from the others is precisely that subtlety. There's no visible sign of infection, no altered posture or aberrant movement, no journey toward the wrong habitat. The mosquito at dusk looks exactly as it always has. That familiar silhouette, those thread-like legs, the soft whine of wings in warm air. The behavior looks ordinary because it is ordinary, just slightly, imperceptibly adjusted in ways that serve something other than the insect's own reproductive success. Its search through the evening air, its careful reading of heat and breath and chemistry, all of it continues, and all of it carries the parasite forward through the landscape. The mosquito bites because it needs to. It's just that the need in an infected insect may not be entirely its own anymore. You said, rewrite the following chapter, so it feels like it was written by a real human narrator, not AI. On a warm afternoon at the edge of a garden or woodland, a carpenter bee is hard to miss. That heavy, glossy body hovering in front of a flower with an almost audible sense of purpose, then banking away toward a fence post or a weathered beam with the same unhurried confidence. These are not colony insects in the way honeybees are. Most carpenter bees are solitary, each female responsible for her own future, excavating tunnels in dry wood with her mouthparts, shaping individual chambers inside, and packing each one with a carefully prepared mix of pollen and nectar before sealing it off as a food supply for a single larva. It's slow, effortful, expensive work, and it demands a reliable routine. The same flowers, the same roots, the same nest entrance, day after day. The bee holds a detailed map of her local landscape in her memory and navigates it with a consistency that her reproduction depends on absolutely. There is no backup system, no colony to absorb the cost of a bad week. If she misses foraging days, if she loses her way, if her timing slips, the consequences fall on her and her offspring alone. Parasitic manipulation in a solitary bee doesn't need to look like the Ophiocordyceps ant or the horsehair worm's Mantis to be effective. The leverage points are different here, and so is the scale at which disruption matters. A change in foraging timing, a slight increase in the time a bee spends on certain flowers, an altered response to shelter cues, a weakened return flight. None of these are visually dramatic. But in a solitary insect operating without any social buffer, even modest behavioral changes can cascade into significant outcomes. Research into various bee pathogens and parasites has found evidence of exactly these kinds of effects. Infected bees may forage less efficiently, navigate less accurately, or make subtly different choices about where to go and when to return. The bee still looks like a bee doing bee work. It still vibrates against flower anthers, still grooms pollen from its body, still follows routes that look purposeful. But the optimization that normally keeps her reproductive effort on track has been quietly degraded. The ecological consequences extend beyond the individual nest. A carpenter bee moving through a landscape connects flowers, wood structures, predators, competitors, and a wide community of microorganisms, mites, fungi, bacteria, that ride along with her or wait at the surfaces she touches. A parasite that shifts when and where she moves isn't just affecting her, it's using her foraging routes as distribution infrastructure, turning pollination corridors into transmission pathways. The same network of plants and resting sites that the bee evolved to navigate for her own reproductive benefit becomes, under parasitic influence, a network the parasite can exploit. The landscape doesn't change, the bee's relationship to it does, and the difference between those two things is where the parasite lives. Carpenter Bees close this series not with the most dramatic story, but perhaps the most honest one. The cases that came before, the ant driven to its death grip, the mantis walked to the water's edge, the spider that built its own replacement, are vivid enough that they risk making parasitic manipulation seem like a phenomenon of extremes, reserved for the most spectacular outcomes. The carpenter bee is a reminder that the same principle operates across a much wider range. Behavior is biology expressed in motion, and motion is what determines where an organism feeds, shelters, mates, and dies. To shift any of those things, even slightly, is to shift survival. For the host, for the parasite, and for everything else in the ecosystem that depends on the choices a single insect makes on an ordinary afternoon. The bee may still be flying her usual route. She may still be doing from the outside exactly what she has always done. The question that runs through every chapter of this story is the same one we're left with here. How much of that flight still belongs to her?